This episode is brought to you by Paramount Plus. Paramount Plus has movies. So many movies. The movies you've seen 1,000 times and could watch 1,000 more. Iconic movies your friends can't believe you haven't seen. New movies, classic movies, new takes on classic movies. So whether you're into Top Gun or The Naked Gun, Mean Girls or Mission Impossible, Smurfs or Sonic the Hedgehog, there's a mountain of movies to discover on Paramount Plus. Start streaming today.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states or situations.
EVO.
This series contains adult language and depictions of graphic violence. Listener discretion is advised.
So, Jeff, do you remember your first haircut?
I don't. I have a vague sense of not liking it, but I don't really remember. I was probably one of those kids that cried. What about you?
I don't remember my first, but I remember the first haircut I gave myself.
Oh, my God. How old were you?
I'm probably 4, 5.
What did you use? Did you use scissors?
Well, I don't remember, but all I know is my mom still had the picture from school pictures when I had a big dip in the middle, because when I was younger, I had straight hair, weirdly enough, and so I just cut the top of my head. So, and she's like, "Okay, well, that's what your picture is going to be today." You know.
Oh man, I wish we had that.
Yeah, I might be in some box somewhere in the house. But,
oh my God.
Knives. I know you carry a pocket knife.
Yeah, and it's funny. I used to have lots of pocket knives, not for any reason other than I would just see cool pocket knives. And you wouldn't believe, like I'll take it out to cut something or open a box or something, and people would be like, "Oh my God, you carry a knife!"
It's like a 3-inch knife, right?
Yeah.
I don't carry one. I used to collect them when I was younger.
Yeah. Were you in the Boy Scouts or any of that?
No, I was in the Sea Cadets.
Oh wow! I
Yes.
never heard of the Sea Cadets, but I like the sound of it.
It had cooler clothes than the Boy Scouts. It was a thing in New York at the time.
So I mean,
had
presumably
the spats and all this stuff and the hat. Yeah, I think I was there for a week.
Was there any actual sea involved?
I think we went to the Hudson and looked at a boat. You know what I mean? Taught us how to tie knots and shit like that. But
well, that's cool. You didn't have to go out in the woods and get bit by shit.
No, that's true. Yeah, I just wasn't into Boy Scouts. I did have a Boy Scout knife. I remember that. And I remember having a Swiss Army knife.
Oh, yeah. I got a Swiss Army knife, I think, my 8th birthday or something. And it was like the best day of my life. So, Bruce, why are we talking about knives today?
Well, we're not just talking about any knife. We're going to talk about a knife and a man that divided a nation. Hey, I'm Bruce.
And I'm Jeff. Welcome to Taboo Treasures, a weekly podcast that explores the human obsession with objects of extreme rarity and infamy.
Today's episode, The Knife That Divided a Country. The story of knives started about 1 billion years ago in the Stone Age. The earliest evidence of blades were simple tools made of stone because it was the Stone Age. They used obsidian, flint, and chert because they formed sharp edges when they were broken. They were mostly used for hunting, butchering, and scraping.
Yeah, and jumping all the way ahead to roughly 3300 to 1200 BC, that was the Bronze Age, when metals like copper and bronze gave knives a quantum leap in durability and performance. Mm-hmm. And around the same time, the Iron Age started around 1200 BC when iron and steel replaced bronze, so that blades could become much longer and stronger.
Yeah, swords began to evolve from daggers. Early ones started to show up around 1600 BC. At first, they were short and bronze and mostly used for thrusting or stabbing. We got a lot of thrusting and stabbing going on here.
Knives, man.
Over the years, different cultures developed their own sword design for specific needs, like curved scimitars and straight-edged swords. They also started to make them specialized for cutting, thrusting, or both.
Or cutting heads off.
Yeah. And their design changed with the changing way wars were fought. They also became essential for everyday life. As metallurgy improved, blades became more ornate with decorative elements like carvings and gemstones. They were a sign of status and craftsmanship.
Guns in the 1500s had a big impact on swords. Bayonets, which are basically knives attached to the barrel of a rifle, started to replace them for close quarters combat in the mid-1600s. And kind of amazingly, they're actually still used in our military today.
Yeah, speaking of haircuts, scissors have been found in Mesopotamia and Egypt that were made 3,000 to 4,000 years ago. They were two bronze blades connected by a flexible metal strip that acted as a spring. They were used for cutting fabrics, hair, and other lightweight materials.
That's around when I had my first haircut.
As scissors evolved, they became specialized tools for using like cutting, hair, and surgery, which leads us to our next section.
So now we're going to talk a little bit about the history of cutting hair. Of course, it's impossible to pinpoint the very first person to cut hair, but I was the first person to get a haircut. It probably started in prehistoric times out of necessity. Early humans used the sharp stones, shells, or flint that we talked about earlier to cut or shave hair, starting about 100,000 years ago. They were crude tools and it probably hurt, but it did mark the beginning of grooming and hair maintenance.
Over time, barbers became respected and important members of tribes and society. In some cultures, priests and medicine men were also the barbers, and people believed that they had the power to ward off evil spirits through hair cutting. Okay.
If only. But it wasn't until the 19th century that a barber called A.B. Moeller established the first barber school in Chicago. And really that was sort of the moment that barbering became an actual profession with standardized rules.
Yeah. And so women haircutting, which is a huge industry. I mean, I spend $5 on a haircut. The wife spends $500, right? The internet and social media beauty world is horrible, especially for young women. But no one needs us to add commentary other than to say that these days the pressure on women to look a certain way makes mad men look quaint. But of course, grooming has always been a social thing. Women hanging out with friends under the hairdryers and the beauty parlors like my mom and my grandmother.
Yeah, everybody's mom in those days.
Has kind of morphed into them hanging out with influencers and the rest of the world on the internet.
Yeah, it's too bad. But what about the fellas? Now, I admit this is going back a ways, but, you know, the barbershop poles that are so famous were this unique and kind of reassuring beacon that sent out a universal message. When you walk through these doors, a haircut will be something you get after waiting a little while on a shitty couch, reading a magazine, and time in the chair will be spent getting a haircut and catching up with the barber who kind of became a friend.
Yeah, right. Remember the pictures on the walls of the hairstyles you could pick?
Yeah, there were like 3 of them.
Right. It was a pretty straightforward process back then, but you get a hot towel, a little scalp massage, and a haircut. And even as recently as 50 years ago, a haircut was $5 or $6, and every barber had the same clean smell of barbicide and powder, and a little cologne. If you want to know what wistful looks like, ask anyone who's old enough to remember that smell. Do you remember that smell?
Oh, so well. But I didn't realize that, you know, you just said, even as recently as 50 years ago. It's not that recent.
I know.
Yeah, speaking of that smell, LeBron James has this great show called Shop Uninterrupted, and it's a direct callback to those days. And this is what he said about it, kind of what we're saying. When I was a kid, being in barbershops meant listening to adults talk about sports, clothing, politics, music, and kind of everything happened at the shop. It was a central meeting place for the neighborhood. It was so real, so candid, and no one had a sense of, well, I can't be myself here.
Yeah, he had some really cool guests, too. He had Tom Brady and Snoop Dogg. Who else did he have?
Oh, like Obama and Gavin Newsom. You had politicians. Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, it's a really cool show.
At most salons, you never know how you look or what you'll pay. But at Fantastic Sam's, you'll get the look you want at a price you can count on. Come in any day without an appointment. You'll see why our Everything's Included special is fantastic.
People ask me about supercuts. They think we've got a secret. Well, a supercut is a special hair cutting technique that we can do in any style you want. So you get the same great haircut every time. And a supercut costs only $6. But believe me, there's no secret. Anyone could do it. Don't ask me why they don't. Supercut!
I remember that commercial. You remember that commercial?
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't. But I might have been out of the country then, too.
Yeah. Everything changed in 1975 with Supercuts. It was like the first fast food restaurant, only for hair, and a haircut was $6 to $10. It wasn't exactly known for its quality and artistry, but the fact is it's been 50 years now and they've trained their hairdressers pretty well. Some of them even come with high-end salon resumes.
Yeah, and some people actually go back to Supercuts and ask for a specific person, like a salon. We don't know the percentage of people who get those kind of haircuts, at any of these franchises. But when someone walks into a barbershop today, they expect to drop anywhere from $20 to $100, depending on the location, the barber. But there are hairdressers that charge hundreds, even thousands of dollars for a single haircut. So, are they really worth the price, or is it just about status and exclusivity?
Yes.
They're not worth the price, and yes, they are about status.
In the last 20 to 25 years, haircuts have gone bonkers. Elite barber is a thing, and you can guess whose hair they cut. But one man started it all.
Yeah, he was a Brit with a reputation as a great hairdresser who settled here in L.A., and he really became the godfather of the modern-day celebrity hairdresser. His thing was bringing the high-end hairdresser experience to the masses, and he was wildly successful. His face was on billboards all over the place, and his TV commercials were ubiquitous.
It's really great to look your best, more beautiful each day, with silky, sexy, shiny hair.
The Vidal Sassoon way.
Make Vidal Sassoon shampoo part of your daily three-step plan for beautiful hair.
'Cause if you don't look good, we don't look good. Vidal Sassoon.
He developed his own line of hair products that are still sold in salons all over the world and was worth hundreds of millions of dollars when he died. Here are three descendants of Sassoon's groundbreaking business formula who will take you for a shocking amount of money because you're alive and in the world today. You can guess who their clients are, but we won't name them because they may not be embarrassed. But we're embarrassed for them.
The first guy on the list is not the most expensive. His name's Rossano Ferretti, and he's an Italian guy who charges $1,500 for his signature technique that he spent years perfecting that creates a natural look that moves with the client's face shape and hair texture. He calls it the invisible haircut. Sometimes the jokes make themselves. This is one of those times.
Ted Gibson is a Hollywood red carpet VIP haircut experience guy. He charges only $2,400 for a haircut that will last you a few days, a week, tops.
Stuart Phillips is a guy who's based in London, and now we're really getting somewhere. We'll tell you the most he ever got for one session, but this one almost makes sense in a wasteful, stupid, vulgar kind of way. So he'll take a little off the top and clean up the sides for $16,000. Yes, we meant to say $16,000. But you'll get a first-class flight, champagne, head massages, and a stay at a 5-star hotel. When you look at it that way, it almost makes sense. No, it doesn't. Anyone who gets one of those haircuts needs more than a massage for their heads.
There are all kinds of different bullshit excuse reasons for ridiculously expensive haircuts, but men who get them have completely lost the plot. Most people couldn't tell the difference between a $2,000 see-you-coming haircut and a few minutes in a chair at a Supercuts in the nearest strip mall. Straight razors for shaving and not throat-slitting developed alongside knives and other blades. But one man is responsible for shaving as we know it. Safety razors were already in use, but he revolutionized the business by developing the first disposable razor. He didn't care about the razors themselves, so he sold them cheap as a way to keep customers coming back for the blades. His name was King C. Gillette.
Yeah, and over the years, these razor blade commercials turned into the most ridiculous things. You actually started making fun of them before I did.
Yeah, we would watch them, and we're like, it's a guy riding a motorcycle all sweaty and this big thing, and then we're like, what are they fucking selling? And it's the Octo Blade by Gillette.
Yeah, there'd be 5 F-35s and a bunch of stealth bombers and explosions everywhere.
What's the most famous shaving commercial?
Oh, it's got to be the one with Joe Namath, right?
Yeah, Joe Namath and
Farrah Fawcett.
Yeah, I remember feeling a little thing between my legs move when I was watching that commercial.
Really? I remember feeling a big thing between my legs.
I was 8. But I was like, am I getting a boner for Joe Namath or is it Farrah Fawcett?
Don't argue, it's both.
It's both.
So here are a couple of examples of the kind of silly, overly macho razor blade commercials.
The closest shave is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Mach 3. Easy loading, easy rinsing, and 3 blades that shave closer in 1 easy stroke. It's the easiest way to the closest shave. Mach 3 from Gillette.
The essence of bobsledding. The new sled feels like gliding on silk. The essence of shaving. This is new Atra Plus, an incredible advance in Gillette shaving smoothness. The Plus is the unique lubricating strip that glides the razor effortlessly. You never felt anything smoother. New Atra Plus by Gillette. The essence of shaving.
In 44 BC, a group of Republican senators each used a dagger to assassinate Julius Caesar. And from that moment, daggers became a powerful symbol of betrayal and political intrigue. Don't you think we should give all our congressmen and senators daggers?
Yeah, give them all daggers, turn off the lights, and lock the doors.
Now when he was a young man, he never thought he'd see people stand in line to see the boy king. How'd you get so funky? Did you do the monkey? Born in Arizona. Got a condo made of stoner.
So what's his full name, Jeff?
Tutankhamun.
Okay. Tut. The young Egyptian pharaoh was buried with a dagger found in a tomb in 1922. It was made from iron that came from a fallen meteor. Well, that's pretty cool. Ancient Egyptians believed that it held divine power. It also proves that the Egyptians were highly skilled in metallurgy and they could identify rare materials. Its extraterrestrial origins made it one of the most fascinating historical daggers ever found. It's on display at the Grand Egyptian Museum in Cairo.
Napoleon Bonaparte had an intricately crafted jewel-encrusted dagger during his coronation as emperor in 1804 called the Coronation Dagger, and it was a symbol of his authority, ambition, and military brilliance, and to this day it's one of the most famous artifacts from his reign. You can see it in the Napoleon Bonaparte Museum in France.
Vlad III was the ruler of a region in southern Romania that used to be called Wallachia. He carried a specific dagger for brutal personal executions, but that was nothing. His nickname was Vlad the Impaler, and he really earned it by cutting off the heads of his enemies and impaling them on pikes. After one battle, he left 20,000 heads on pikes behind him.
That's a little bit of a statement.
Whoa. I wonder if those heads had good haircuts.
So before we forget, tell everybody what Vlad's full name was.
Vlad Dracula. Yes, that Dracula.
And now, a little bit about knife throwing. We started throwing them at each other around 5,000 years ago, which is actually kind of surprising. It didn't take till 5,000 years after the invention of guns to start shooting at each other.
Right. For centuries, dozens of types of knives were used in lots of different ways with different techniques in combat. In the hands of a trained soldier, a knife was an extremely efficient and effective way to kill someone. But we're going to spend a minute on throwing knives at people trying to miss by an inch or two, which became a form of entertainment around the turn of the 20th century that you could take the whole family to see in venues like Barnum and Bailey Circus. It started in the U.S. because where else would something start like that? America, fuck yeah.
There were rigged acts that didn't require any skill, but surprisingly that was pretty rare. The act we usually associate most with knife throwing is the one where a sexy but apparently not very smart gal is attached to a wheel. So if you haven't seen this, picture the Wheel of Fortune wheel but standing up. When the wheel starts to spin, the knife thrower goes into action, coming as close as he can to hitting the woman as possible. Sometimes the thrower is even blindfolded. It became so popular that in the 60s, even novelty acts on TV variety shows were doing it.
Fans say they were watching to see the skill of the thrower and the steely nerves of the assistant. But let's be honest, They were trying to see if somebody's going to get a knife stuck in their ear or their eye or something. Just like people don't pay to see cars go 200 miles an hour in NASCAR. They want to see some kind of flip or somersault. So in the Taboo Treasures spirit, we're going to rattle off 3 of the recent times we laughed when everything went horribly wrong.
The first one was at the Tennessee Fairgrounds in 1981 when a knife ricocheted off the board and hit a spectator in the front row.
Ouch.
Yeah. All we know is that he lived long enough to sue the shit out of the venue. Whoever threw that knife really sucked at his job.
And a couple of years ago in Germany, a performer accidentally threw a knife into his own hand. How do you do that?
I can't picture it.
How do you do that? If you can do that at home, don't do it.
But tell us how, though.
Yeah, tell us if you stabbed yourself. But by far the one we most wished we could find the footage of happened in 2018 on America's Got Talent. Fortunately, it wasn't fatal, but apparently an American who didn't have a talent hit his assistant during a rehearsal. What's more surprising is that America Got Talent has a knife-throwing act in the first place. Even if they had won and became the hottest knife-throwing act in the world, they still wouldn't have been able to quit their day job, right?
And that brings us to one of our favorites, the credit card knife. Obviously, there are many, many types of throwing knives, but we don't care about them because we care about all things tactical. So we want to give you a special shout out to one, the credit card shaped tactical throwing card.
You can put that in the tactical wallet I bought you.
Yeah, Bruce, I think we've mentioned this before. It's kind of a running joke, but
we're obsessed with tactical things.
Yeah, Bruce bought me this tactical wallet, and it's great, except if you had to pull the knife out, you break your fingers on it.
Well, you take your tactical credit card knife, put it in your tactical wallet, and then put it in your tactical sweatshirt that stops you, hoodie.
Right, the hoodie.
That stops you from getting wet.
And this is real. On the commercial for the tactical hoodie, one of the lines is, "Finally, a hoodie you can go outside." Unreal. What's the most you ever spent on a haircut, and was it worth it?
Let us know and reach out to us at Taboo Treasures on Instagram and the TikTok, or email us at tabootreasures@evocreative.com. We've talked about ceremonial swords, swords with religious meanings, fighting swords, swords that signify a position, and so on. But now we're going to talk about the best kind of sword, the kind you can eat. I want mine medium rare.
Can you imagine, of all the crazy shit humans do, this got to be, it's just confusing, right?
Yeah.
Like 4,000 years ago, someone looked at a sword and thought, I'm gonna tilt my head back and stick that whole thing down my throat.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's crazy.
Well, I'm not sure what to add to that, but forget about him. Imagine being the first person to see someone do it.
Yeah, you're like, dude, what are you doing?
Excuse me, sir.
Sir, please take that sword out of your throat. I guess back in 2000 BC, it became a thing in India as a part of what kind of rite? A religious rite. Back then, fakirs and shamans did it to show spiritual power and invulnerability. It became a pretty popular form of entertainment around the world. But it wasn't until the late 19th century, early 20th century, that it took off when sword swallowers became a hit in the circuses and sideshows in USA.
USA.
Born in the USA.
Today, there's actually a sword swallowers day. Ripley's Believe It or Not auditoriums, which actually sounds like a pretty cool thing. They host these sword swallowers around the country to celebrate sword swallowing and also to dispel some of the ancient myths. But they also do something you'd never see coming. They raise awareness of the contributions sword swallowers have made in the fields of science and medicine. Yep.
For example, before cameras and x-rays, the first endoscopy of the upper gastrointestinal tract was performed on a sword swallower in 1868 by a German doctor named Adolf Kussmaul. He had a patient who was a sword swallower who went by the name Iron Henry. Henry had a tumor in his esophagus, but the doctor couldn't see far enough down to see it. So he had Henry swallow an 18-inch tube, and with a mirror and a gasoline lamp for light, the doctor was able to see all the way into Iron Henry's stomach.
What a fucking cool doctor. Hey, I got an idea. Can you imagine? It was also used in the early days of electrocardiography. In 1906, a sword swallower allowed himself to be used as a guinea pig to test the first electrocardiogram of the esophagus ever done. By inserting an electrode into the guy's esophagus, the doctor, another German, M. Kremer, inserted an electrode into the sword swallower's esophagus and recorded his heart activity.
It turns out that some performers have suffered from sore throats, I bet, and pains after performances. Our research can sometimes be questionable, but we found that the treatment most often prescribed by doctors was stop swallowing swords.
There are only a few dozen professional sword swallowers even working anymore these days. Meanwhile, the record for the number of swords swallowed at the same time is 24 swords at once. But who cares about the pros? I want to see an amateur try it.
Here, I got a sword for you. Knives have been so important to some films that they're actually like a co-star. Rambo's knife is this big-ass Bowie-style knife Stallone got arrested with in the first Rambo movie. In a famous scene in the first sequel, Rambo, First Blood, they drew First Blood, sir. He cleans it like he's in love with it, which he kind of is, and he uses it a lot for making things and cutting and carving and stabbing. It was built by a famous knightsmith called Jimmy Lyle, who created a whole mission knife series based on it. In the third John Wick movie, he and a bad guy are fighting in a hallway, and at the same moment, they both stop and realize they're standing right in front of a huge case of swords and daggers on display. They smash the glass, grab knives, and start fighting again.
You just heard the sound of the most legendary use of a knife in one of the most famous scenes in any movie ever, the shower scene in the Alfred Hitchcock movie Psycho. On top of the shocking and terrifying way it's shot, the murderer turns out to be a man named Norman Bates, dressed up in his own dead mother's clothes and wig. Oh, spoiler alert. But for all its notoriety and implied violence, there's not a single actual shot of a stab in any one of the 78 camera setups and 52 shots. West Side Story is the classic modern-day retelling of Romeo and Juliet that uses two young enemy New York street gangs in lieu of the two warring families in the Shakespeare original. And there's this rumble between the gangs, the Jets and the Sharks.
When you're a jet all the way from your first cigarette to your last dying day. Bow!
It ends with an unforgettable, heartbreaking stabbing that sets off a string of tragic events.
Yeah, the knife was a switchblade, which had only been outlawed 3 years before the movie was released, and it made switchblades a metaphor for the outlaw. Since then, switchblade laws have been argued and debated nonstop. Even the definition of what a switchblade is has changed over the years, and there's still no one universal law that covers them. But one thing has stayed consistent the whole time. They're still a symbol of outsiders and violence.
We don't have time, of course, for all of them, but just to name check a few more of the great movie knives, there's Crocodile Dundee's massive Bowie knife.
That's not a knife. That's a knife.
The knife fight with no rules in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, Britt in the original Magnificent Seven played by James Coburn, and so many more.
There are a lot of knives that have been notable for one reason or another over the years, but these three have one thing in common. Every little boy wanted one. The Swiss Army knife was actually made in Switzerland for their army in 1891, and it's never been more popular than it is now. Even the name Swiss Army knife has its own slang that means a wide skill set or something with multiple uses.
Yeah, and we were talking about this before. Even athletes, like a football player who plays a few different positions, they call him a Swiss Army knife.
Right.
It's really wild.
And these things had a shitload of attachments.
Oh, yeah. We were refreshing our memories, and altogether, I don't know if any one knife has them, but there's 33 attachments. So, and there's the usual stuff like blades and screwdrivers, but then it was things like a corkscrew, a can opener,
tweezers, a hair dryer.
The toothpick's really a famous one. It even comes on the little ones.
Yeah. Well, they have magnifying glass and a ballpoint pen.
Yeah, the magnifying glass that's really important. You get some twigs and stuff and start a fire with your... So I'm sure somebody started a fire with one of those things.
Yeah, it was kind of like a Boy Scout knife on steroids.
Yeah.
And speaking of Boy Scout knives, Jeff...
Oh, yeah. So that is something we want to talk about. The Boy Scout knives evolved from the earliest pocket knives. They came around the time that we entered World War I. Of course, it's gone through a lot of changes, but these early ones were really cool. It had the Boy Scout motto was "Be prepared." And they had it on a little shield, and it was just the coolest thing.
Yeah, and so before David Bowie's first record, Bowie.
Segue.
Bowie, nice segue. He invented the Bowie knife. No, we're just not really.
Just keep going.
It was actually invented by Resin Bowie, and it first became popular in the 1830s when you got your second haircut. People tend to think of it as a certain style of large, wide blade knife, but it comes in a variety of shapes and sizes. The name refers more to the quality. So I have a little quick knife story for you. When I was little, I was probably 7 or 8, 9 years old. It was in the Bronx in the late 60s, early 70s, and I had a knife collection. My mom wouldn't let me play with toy guns, but I had knives. I don't know why. But I would walk through the woods to get to my school in the Bronx, and I would take a knife with me.
The woods in the Bronx?
Yeah, where we lived, it was woods, man. I walked through, I got in a lot of trouble in those woods.
Wow.
And so dumbass like me carried a knife with me to school, and this is before all the metal detectors in schools, so I could get in there with it. So this one day I'm going to school, and this big kid who had to be a high schooler stops me and goes, "Give me your lunch money, boy." And so I pull my knife out, and I hold it at him, and he goes, "Give me that knife." And I gave it to him.
Oh my God.
And he goes, "Get out of here. Go back to school."
Oh, that's the saddest story I ever heard.
I'm sad. No, I felt tough for a minute.
So we've talked a little about the history of knives and, what they're used for. And there's some basic categories that like knife throwing for entertainment, and there's competition, but we haven't talked about murder yet. So,
murder, yes.
Yeah. So what would a Taboo Treasures podcast be without some lurid murders?
Exactly.
The most recent one was a singer-songwriter named Elliott Smith, who was nominated for an Academy Award for Miss Misery, which is sung in Good Will Hunting. He died on October 21st in 2003 after stabbing himself in the chest. That's what they say. There was some question about that after they found his girlfriend's fingerprint on the knife.
Yeah, that's kind of hard to do. She says she heard him scream and tried to pull the knife out of his chest, but couldn't.
Yeah, that's how her fingerprints got on the knife when she tried to pull it out, not push it in.
I mean, how hard is it to pull a knife out of his chest? I don't know, and you don't know, but if you're a forensic scientist, what do you think, and why are you listening to this podcast?
Rob Knox was the British kid who played Marcus Belby in Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. And apparently some guy started picking a fight with his younger brother, so Rob tried to step in and ended up getting stabbed to death. He was only 18 years old, and the shitbag who did it, whose name we won't give airtime to, is doing life in prison.
Wow. Johnny Stompanato was a bodyguard and a gangster in the 50s who was in a pretty crazy relationship with Lana Turner, who was a huge movie star at the time. In 1958, Turner's daughter, Cheryl Crane, stabbed him to death because she said he was attacking her mother. They ruled the death a justifiable homicide, although to this day a lot of people still think it was Lana and not Cheryl.
Well, anyway, if this all sounds interesting, this Johnny Stompanato thing, but you wish it was funnier, see Martin Short as Jiminy Glick in Lollywood.
A little plug here. Jeff produced it, and I put a bunch of music in it. Don't tell anybody.
So this one's sad. There was a guy named Daniel M. Lewin on the American Airlines Flight 11 that crashed into the World Trade Center. Apparently he was stabbed and potentially shot too. They're not sure. By the hijackers when he tried to stop them. It was fucking sad.
Yeah. And the last one here is George Weber, who was a radio personality on the ABC radio network. In 2009, he was stabbed more than 50 times by a 16-year-old kid who said he met Weber on Craigslist. So apparently Craigslist has not changed one bit. And now we're going to get to the collectibles part of the podcast. Ulysses S. Grant's Civil War presentation sword. Grant became a symbol of the Union's victory against the Confederacy, and if you don't think the South's still pissed about it, you need to change the channel. He was given the sword when he became the General-in-Chief of the Army in 1864. It's got 26 diamonds that spell out his initials, and the blade has battle scenes engraved on it. Of course, he went on to become the 18th president in 1869 and served 2 terms. The knife was sold for about $1.6 million in 2007, and it was auctioned off again at Bonhams for $2 million.
The next one's the Gem of the Orient knife, and it's by far the most recent. It's really recent, in fact. It was designed by an American custom knife maker called Buster Warensky in 1966. It's got 9 diamonds and 153 emeralds on the handle, and 32 ounces of 18-karat gold in the handle and the blade. I can't imagine that'd be very strong, but anyway, it was featured on the cover of Blade magazine in August of '91, and it's considered the highest quality knife in the art knife world for, its craftsmanship, creativity, originality, and design. There's no consensus on its value, but most experts agree that it's probably somewhere between 1.2 and 2.5 million.
And number 3 on our list is the 15th century Nasrid period ear dagger. If you're wondering what an ear dagger is, it has a hilt that divides and splits away, and it looks like a pair of circular ears, except it really doesn't, but we didn't name it. This one has Arabic and Latin inscriptions on the ears that don't look like ears, and it's sold for about $6 million.
Next up is Napoleon Bonaparte's gold-encrusted sword. It's got a 33-inch curved blade and intricate designs in gold. He actually used this one in battle for years before he became emperor, and he was still carrying it when he took power in 1804.
He gave it to his brother as a wedding gift, and after that it was passed down through generations. But there were disagreements between his direct descendants, so eventually the sword was auctioned off with the condition that whomever bought it had to have an address in France and keep it in the country for 5 or 6 months every year. The buyer paid $6.4 million, and in 1978, the French government declared it a national treasure.
Number 1 is the Tipu Sultan's bedchamber sword. Tipu Sultan was the ruler of Mysore, which is now called Mysuru, in India in 1782. They called them bedchamber swords because people slept with them next to their pistols. This blade has the sword of the ruler inscribed on it, and the hilt's inlaid with amazing gold calligraphy. In May of 2023, it was sold at a Bonhams auction in London. And, it's sort of in the tradition of most of our number 1 collectibles. The price is just crazy compared to everything else. They sold this thing for $17.3 million, and it's the most expensive knife in history.
Watch O.J. Simpson, number 1 halfback, demonstrate a really close shave.
I'll shave one side with the leading double-edged blade. The other side with the Schick Flexomatic. Now let's see if my wife Marguerite could feel any difference.
I can't tell. Both sides feel the same.
You ought to switch to the Schick Flexomatic, the electric that feels blade close.
And that brings us to the subject of today's podcast. Pretty much everyone in the world knows about the O.J. Simpson trial, but if you're not old enough to remember it, or you landed on Earth 10 minutes ago, O.J. Simpson was one of the greatest NFL running backs in the history of the game.
And after his football career was over, he became a huge media star. He was all over TV and theatrical movies and TV shows.
The Hertz car commercial?
That's right, yeah. And so many. A slew of commercials. And, he guest starred in everything. And really, at one point, he was probably one of the most recognizable faces in the world. But then he became really famous. In '94, he was accused of murdering his ex-wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, and Ron Brown. And, man, it was horrible and violent and bloody, and it just captured the imagination of the whole world.
The authorities searched everywhere for a murder weapon, a large serrated knife. In addition to the murder scene, they even searched for it in Chicago, where O.J. ran. Everyone went nuts when investigators found out that O.J. had bought a big 15-inch knife in downtown L.A. near where he was filming a movie. But it was kind of a comedy of errors. Long story short, there was no way it could have been the murder weapon.
The prosecution was brutalized in the press, and the trial made superstars out of 2 of O.J.'s defense attorneys. The prosecution entered a bloody glove that was found at the scene into evidence, but Johnny Cochran, O.J.'s lead attorney, turned it against them. He had O.J. try it on in court to prove it was too small to have been his, and it was a fiasco.
If it doesn't fit, you must acquit.
That line became a meme before memes were memes.
The TV coverage was nonstop and wall to wall. Tens of millions of people watched as the jury read one of the most controversial outcomes in legal history.
Mr. Simpson, would you please stand and face the jury?
Superior Court of California, County of Los Angeles, in the matter of the people of the state of California versus Orenthal James Simpson, case number BA097211. We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant Orenthal James Simpson not guilty of the crime of murder in violation of Penal Code Section 187A, a felony upon Nicole Brown Simpson, a human being, as charged in count 1 of the information.
At the time, polls showed that 7 in 10 black Americans thought he was innocent. But in 2015, a Washington Post ABC News poll showed that it shifted. Now, 6 in 10 black Americans think he's probably guilty. Not surprisingly, more than 8 in 10 white Americans thought he was guilty and still do.
But the sidebar to the story had even more of an effect on our culture and society in the long run than even the trial itself. That was the rise of one of O.J.'s attorneys to superstardom, Robert Kardashian. That Kardashian. Yep.
Yeah. You can thank O.J. for the Kardashians, especially one Kardashian in particular.
Definitely. She is definitely his daughter.
Yeah, the other ones are kind of tiny and whatever, and she's all big and muscular and good. I'm surprised they haven't accepted it, but...
I guess there's even limits to what the Kardashians are.
Yeah, the evil mom genius said, no, we can't let that out.
Yeah.
Well, we've talked about knives from the Stone Age to today, including some of the most important and expensive in history. But what about a knife that people have been searching for more than 30 years and that no one's ever found and that no one has ever seen?
How much would the knife that killed Nicole Simpson and Ron Brown be worth to a collector? And what kind of person would want it in their collection?
So that does it for today's episode. We really hope you liked it. You know, if you have any thoughts on this subject, please reach out to us at Taboo Treasures on Instagram and the TikTok, or
you can email us at tabootreasures@evocreative.com.
Click that like button. We need you to like us.
Please.
Please like us. From EVO, Taboo Treasures is produced by Bruce Whitkin and Jeff Levine. Executive producer Brandon Morgan. Music by The Lonely Bulls.